All right, it's a wet, rainy Friday morning on the smooth breakfast, smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It is that kind of morning where you just want to wrap yourself up in your duvet or under your duvet and stay in bed. I don't do anything. Well, I need to be here to make sure that you are going to have the best start to the final working day of the week. Welcome along to Business Express. My name is Ayokunmi, and it is, like I said, a Friday edition of Business Express. So, it's all about tech and tech related matters. It's a Tech Friday. It's brought to you by IntoSwitch. It's going to be 15 minutes or thereabouts of a very, very interesting conversation. And this morning, we're going to be talking about Fintech Okra. Yes, Nigerian Fintech Okra. They've shut down after raising about $16 million. Now, those are minor and boggling numbers when you think about it. And joining me to talk about this and a whole lot more is senior reporter at Techpoint Africa in the person of Bolu Abiodun. Bolu, good morning to you. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. And for you listening to us out there, if you want to be part of the conversation, all you need to do is to send your messages to us on WhatsApp. The number is 0809 444 0981. You can also join us on the live stream. We are on YouTube. Yes, indeed, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right. Well, let's jump right into the conversation. And the question a lot of people probably have is what type of fintech services did Okra actually provide?
Okay, so Okra is kind of like they offer something we can call open banking services. So basically, you want to, basically it's a B2B kind of fintech, right? They
Okay.
help you with aggregating data for customers, right? So that you don't have to get that data by yourself. So, for example, if I am a loan company, right, and I want
Okay.
to give loans to people, right, what Okra would do for me is to help me see the historical financial data of a customer, right? Help me
Right.
aggregate it
Right.
across, the different banks they use, the different transactions they've done, right? And then I have a better sense of I have a better sense of who this customer is when it comes to their finances, how
Okay.
much risk do they pose if I was going to loan them money, things like that, right? So they are just that they just give you that API where getting the historical financial data of a customer becomes very easy.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for giving us the insight as to what exactly that they do. Now, like I mentioned earlier on, $16 million, mind-boggling numbers. Now, that is a lot of money, but where exactly did it all go?
Yeah, I mean that's the question on everyone's minds, right? And that's the question, a lot of us really wish that the founders will give us more details about. But as of now, they've not really done that. But the interesting thing about, the startup world is sometimes it just doesn't work out, right?
Mm,
You might raise all the money that's needed. You might, do everything necessary, and sometimes it just doesn't work. I mean, there's still it's not just uh, there's still some mistakes that were made along the way, right?
right.
Because I mean, 60, like you said, $60 million is a lot of money, right? So there might have been missteps, some things that could have been done differently to make sure that that money was put to good use,
Mm,
right? And that the company did not have to wind down at this time. But statistically speaking, when it comes to startup, any kind of business, right? Not even tech, right? The likelihood of surviving is very low.
ah,
So if we look at it from that perspective, you just realize, when it comes to startups, some make it, some don't.
mm. Some make it and some don't. But bearing that in mind, that some make it and some don't. As a
Mm.
startup, there would have been staff and so on and so forth. Now, do you
Mhm.
think that there would be any resentment among the employees toward the founders of the companies? I mean, they just moved on to other jobs and bounced
Mm.
just like that.
So, I mean, obviously, it is not going to be, no one will be happy, right? Whether founders or employees.
Hmm.
But whether there will be resentment has to do with the kind of culture that the startup has built and the way the startup communicates, right?
Right.
Um, if it's a if they've built a very healthy working culture, a very um, you know built very good rapport with employees.
Hmm.
The employees obviously will not be happy, but there might not be resentment. They might understand that these founders were they put in everything they could, they tried everything they could, but it's the end of the road. And yeah, while they might be sad, they might not resent the founders. But if it has been the opposite, there will definitely be be resentment.
Oh my goodness, we tend to know how these things actually work. But
Mm,
looking at everything that led to the shutting down of Okra, I
mm,
mean, talking about cloud infrastructure, is it
mm.
that playing in that space is very expensive? I mean, what lesson is there to be learned from this experience?
Okay. Yeah, so for those that don't know, right, they're a B2B fintech, like I said, right, and they offer those services that I spoke about, but along the line, right, they decided to pivot, right, or we could say they decided to add another service, which is cloud services to what they were doing. So basically, they wanted to they wanted to make it easier for Nigerian businesses that use cloud services to not have to always pay the big guys, the Amazons, the Google, the Microsoft,
Yeah,
paying a lot of money to those guys for cloud services and, trying to pay those guys in dollars. It's kind of hard for you when you're in Nigerian businesses. You're making naira, but then one of the key costs of running your business is in dollars, right? So they're like, oh, why don't we, create an alternative for them, right? Let's start our own cloud services so that Nigerian businesses can get cheaper, cloud services
mm,
and, pay in naira, right? Which is if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Businesses, if there's something that burns money, right, when it comes to running
yeah,
a big startup in Nigeria, cloud services is one of them, right? And Okra decided to, be the alternative for Nigerian businesses, but I mean, as we can ultimately it failed, right? And I think one of the reasons, like you have said, is because it's a very capital intensive um, venture to go into, right?
mm,
And the guys you are competing with, I mean, these are $1 trillion companies, right?
heavyweights.
Yeah, they are really heavyweights, and you need because the stage where we are now with technology, we cannot really afford downtimes or maintenance, this, that. Yeah, and the way the country is right now. So
Yeah,
for Okra to get the kind of clients it needs, right, to stay alive, its services need to be on par with what the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsofts offer. So I'm going to assume that because of the amount of money to take, to offer that level of service, right?
yeah,
They were not able, to compete with those guys, and ultimately they could not get the kind of clients that would give them, proper returns on even the small investments that they've made in cloud services.
Hmm. Okay. All right, Bolu. Now, I want to talk about, I mean, the tech space in terms of the startups. Now, we've had some notable Nigerian tech startups shut down
Mm-hmm.
pretty recently. I've been talking about your Okras, Juvelings, your Edukoyas, Bento Africas, that have actually shut down. This is just the second half of beginning of the second half of 2025. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
should we be alarmed? Or just accept that this is just part of the winners and losers business cycle, you know?
Honestly, for me, I think it's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? Like I said, in the startup world, it's just uh, uh, it's the outliers that survive. That's the way it is with businesses. You cannot be you have to be completely you have to be like really doing something really special. You have to be so I don't know how to put it, but there's
You have to
really
be
no need to be
unique.
alarmed.
You have to
Yeah,
be unique,
exactly.
kind of.
Yeah, because that's how it is in the business world. In Nigeria, it's more difficult, but really in any ecosystem, surviving as a business is very difficult, and this is absolutely normal, right? Even VCs, when they invest, right, when they invest in so many companies,
Yeah.
what they usually do is they usually hope that, let's say they invest in 100 companies. The hope is that out of this 100, at least maybe five, right, will give us back, you know, times 10, 20, 50 of what we've probably lost in the
Mm-hmm.
other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you just need to understand that, in this space, it's it's win some, lose some. I mean,
Mm.
lose most and win little.
Uh, talking about winning little very quickly because of
Mm,
time, what
okay.
actually needs to happen for us to have more wins, less losses?
Okay. I think the possibility of that happening, it's the only thing we can hope for is that we have less losses, right? But for us to do that, I think one thing we need to do is there needs to be more engagement within the ecosystem, right? More
Okay.
communication. When you win as a founder, let us know everything you did. Let us learn from you. And when you lose as well, which is even more important, right? Let's have more detailed conversations around why those losses happen, what exactly
Right,
went wrong,
right, right.
right? So that a lot of founders can learn from that, right? The losses are more important than the wins, right? And
Mm.
then let everyone from the media to the founders to the VCs to the investors, let everyone learn from these mistakes and, know what to change going forward.
Let everyone learn from mistakes. And that is something that Gilbert Musa is echoing in a
Mm,
message here on WhatsApp. He's in Festac this morning. He says, on tech startups shutting down after a brief period of operation, this can be likened to regulators not carrying out due diligence before such a company is birthed. Also, it is important that startups study past companies before they begin. That is something
mm.
very, very important. Thank you very much for your message, Gilbert, and thank you so much for joining me this morning on the show. I've been talking to Bolu Abiodun. He's a senior reporter at Techpoint Africa. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, Bolu, do have yourself a great Friday and a great weekend ahead.
All right.
Okay, then. And thank you all for being a part of Business Express this morning. It's been brought to you by IntoSwitch. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast. It's going to be great music all the way. So Friday, after all, it's chill vibes all the way till 7:30 when we take a look at the stories making the headlines on Freshly Pressed.